Hey, folks, welcome back to the podcast. This is not a solo episode. Today, I have a guest called Matthew Gamblin. Excited to get into a number of things, including being in Australia and another business have going on, co founders. Excited to talk about Fluxium as well, and maybe a bit of a soft launch. But yes, Matthew or Matty, if you want me to do an introduction, that's absolutely no problem. But if you want to tell the anyone listening or people out there a bit about yourself, be great.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Obviously, my name's Matt. In terms of how we know each other, goes back to almost 10, maybe a bit longer. Maybe we were talking like 15 years ago now, Ryan, when I was in the UK. We started training together. Yes, we've just recently co-founded a company called Fluxium, and yeah, it's an exciting journey. I know myself, I've kind of been a bit of a solo entrepreneur, and it's good to be able to kind of go on this journey with someone.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And the training, it was back in London, and that was good fun in the gym there. And no, unfortunately, it's no longer. It's a new facility. Well, it's the same similar facility, but it's a new rebrand. It's a rebranded or new ownership as well. So I'd love to do just a quick intro as well, Matty, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
If you know what. Perfect. Just over on your LinkedIn, I'm a C-suite operator specializing in scaling, restructuring, and exiting founder-led and investor-backed businesses. Over the past 15 plus years, I've worked across high growth, turnaround, and corporate environments with consistent focus on one outcome, enterprise value creation. I have led and supported approximately $89 million strategic exit to a global acquirer, multi-country turnaround, resolving insolvency risk and unlocking significant growth, capital raises, M&A execution, and post-deal integration across multiple businesses, scaling operations from early stage through to global expansion. My background combines financial leadership with operational execution, allowing me to operate across strategy, execution, and capital allocation, not just finance. Translate strategy into execution, build scalable operating models, drive performance, cash flow, and growth, prepare businesses for capital events and exit. I'm particularly interested in opportunities where I can partner with investors or founders to scale businesses, lead transformation or turnaround environments, play a key role in value creation and exit. Yeah, and it says the your current title, which we may swap over soon. Wait and see. This is a soft launch. Executive, but I'm sure he will. Executive leader for founders and CEOs, scaling teams, decisions, and execution. And it mentions that your current title or education directorship, Australian Institute of Company Directors. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think that's everything.
Yeah, that would be the profile. Just I guess updated it yesterday and put some kind of more material in there. But yeah, essentially finance background. Originally a chartered accountant, but I moved off into commerce and industry, both in Australia and the UK, and worked with some exciting brands like Red Bull, ASOS.com, William Grant and Sons, and Diageo. And then, so big global businesses. Then I got involved in some early stage biotech startups and government funded projects as well and high growth businesses. The good example was Flightboard. So essentially, they made a pretty cool product where it was a kind of like in Back to the Future, where you've got the hoverboards, but these ones are kind of like hoverboards, but they I guess go above water. And had an exit event there to a strategic buyer called Brunswick Corp. And then post that, I've been doing my own consulting work with privately owned businesses in Australia, usually between 10 up to 100 mil. And that's where a lot of that transformational change has happened. So, yes, I use numbers, but then it becomes a lot more kind of operationally focused to be actually execute on what we're trying to achieve for the business at that point in time.
Yeah, that's great, Matty. It seems there's a lot to cover today. I'm like super excited for people to hear about your story. And I'd love, first of all, if we were just to go back to growing up I believe it's in New South Wales. You grew up in Sydney, Australia, and
Yeah, that's correct. So I grew up in Sydney, Australia. Grew up in an area called Castle Hill, or the Hills area. Actually, a pretty nice area to grow up in. It's changed a bit now. There's obviously kind of like a lot of places. There's been more housing development and so forth. But yeah, have a sister, two parents. I remember growing up with a dog. And yeah, a lot of bushland. So used to kind of go mountain bike riding. Was pretty active out there. So I remember, yeah, in the backyard, it was all concreted. Well, no, actually, I do lie. There was a bit of grass to begin with, and then I convinced my dad to concrete it in so that I could start kind of playing basketball and so forth there. But yeah, I remember kind of, if I look back on it now, and even in the friends that I have now that grew up in the same area, it's actually a really good place to grow up in. Um, yeah, very privileged to be able to have that kind of opportunity because quite safe environments, low crime levels, and was pretty much allowed to kind of roam free. Didn't need to worry about anything. Very different to living in, say, somewhere like a London, right? A completely polar opposite.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think London's improved its safety over the last number of years. Yeah, yeah. I think last time I was there, I don't mean to be. I'll try to keep as positive as possible. My phone got taken out of my hand, so I think yeah, Sydney and New South. It seems like a very safe space or place to grow up. I know, unfortunately, there was some terror attacks in Bondi Beach, but thankfully, it seems a lot safer now and a great place for to grow up as a kid.
Yeah, that's for sure. We don't really understand probably how lucky. Well, I personally didn't really understand how lucky we had it into Australia um, until I probably moved overseas. But one thing which was actually interesting that I reflect on now is was kind of around the age of 12. So the Hills area is quite like a nice, let's say, kind of upper middle class area. And I used to play all different sports, but at the time I was playing baseball, which is odd being an Australian kid playing an American kind of game. Um, my parents actually made me go to other parts of Sydney, so Western Sydney around Auburn and so forth, and play for some of the clubs around there, just to get a different perspective of how people lived, because it was a totally different environment there. Yeah, kind of lower socioeconomic status back then. And I remember actually going to a training night one time because I used to play for the Auburn Orioles, and we actually had to cancel the training session because there was a gang fight in the car park. um, yeah, so I mean, yeah, looking back on that now, it's like it was interesting. And then I'd come back to the hills and be playing, say, basketball in the hills area, and again, different kind of dynamic.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah. There's definitely yeah. Did you find though that sports growing up really helped you along the journey in school as well? And I believe it's primary school and secondary school in Australia, similar to that in Ireland. I believe it's similar.
Yeah, so yeah, primary school. So ages what, 6 to 12, primary school, and then you go high school, which is, yeah, 12 to usually kind of 18, and then uni off the back of that. But yeah, I was always pretty active as a kid. I couldn't really sit still. So I was always running around doing everything. I was actually pretty competitive. Um, I would refuse to lose at certain games. I would always chuck a bit of a tantrum. I definitely remember that. But I was kind of like one of those, I guess, jack of all trades, master of none. And I'd usually kind of pick up the skills of the sport relatively quickly.
Yeah, and did you find though that those habits of being able to be competitive and pick up skills, did they transfer after into university or college and then the business world, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've actually found, so I struggled to concentrate when I was younger. I did actually, one thing that probably was something really strong that my parents implemented. I don't know, have you ever heard of a thing called Kumon?
Yeah.
So I think it might be Japanese actually. I don't know. I'd have to double check where it actually stemmed from, but it was around maths. And I remember being in I think it would have been year 3 or year 4, and my mum would make me go to Kumon kind of after school, and that's where you just basically it was like repetition, repetition, repetition. So, and you advance up the different scales. So you kind of get a book, and you have to go 2 plus 1 equals kind of 3, but it'd be a bit more advanced as you went through, and then you moved into your times tables and uh, like your more kind of advanced mathematics and so forth. But you had, and it was time based. So you kind of had to go in and do that, and that I guess created more discipline around how I actually started to work and apply myself. And you had to do it in school holidays as well. And so I remember mum actually installing and saying you're not allowed to go and play outside or go and catch up with your friends until you've done your Kumon. And I actually found that that was probably more disciplined as opposed to the traditional schooling system because it was kind of like you had to record the time in which you did, which you started and completed. And that approach, I think, uh, definitely when I remember when I went into high school and towards the later years, I kind of used that same approach to studying.
That's fascinating, Matty, that you use the same approach to studying. Did that help you a lot going from high school or high school into university?
Yeah. So I remember the first few years at um, high school. Actually, no, it was probably more the later years when I was doing the HSC and so forth, where I would be very structured in how I would study and approach. So, to the point, so I would do 3 sessions basically. So I did 45 minutes on, 15 minutes off, and I'd repeat that 3 times um, uh, throughout. So I'd go 45 on, so 15 off, and repeat that 3 times, and do 3 of those sessions actually so 2 of those sessions in an actual day. And I found that allowed me to keep up the energy to learn something, and then again keep applying that consistent approach. That time based element was really strong because I knew I couldn't sit and do 3 hour blocks because I get bored. That kind of structured time based approach sped up the learning and knew that I had something to look forward to relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's fascinating how your mind at such a young age went into a mental model or a framework of splitting up your time and using that efficiently. It must have helped tremendously. And I think for those of you out there that aren't aware from other countries, HSE is the high school examination, or?
Yeah. So the yeah, fair point, Ryan. Yeah, so HSC is the equivalent that you need to get into university. So depending on what you're looking to study, you get you get a HSC score, which is like basically a score out of 100. I think they've changed the naming of it now. But yeah, based on that score, then that allows you to choose your subject university. For example, yeah, it was ranked out of 100. So if you wanted to go and study medicine or so forth, then you needed something around 95 to 100 to be able to actually either qualify for university straight from high school. Uh, Whereas if you got something kind of a little bit kind of lower, say something around that 70 mark, you wouldn't be able to get entered. You'd have to go a different kind of route.
Yeah, wow. It seems very similar to, just for anyone out there in Ireland, or first time listening in Australia. I base from initially originally from Ireland and moved here and into Sydney. I'm here about 5 months, and the education system is quite similar. I've noticed the primary school, secondary school, and there's the leaving cert in Ireland, and there's the high school examination, which is an entry level, not an entry level, but there's entry level points to then university courses like medicine and so on, and et cetera, computer science and business and management, and or business and commerce. And
Yeah, and it's I don't know if Ireland's the same. So Australia was a bit. I noticed Australia was a bit different to the UK because in terms of what you studied at university, then determined what you would go into work wise. Whereas I remember the UK was slightly different. They didn't really care what you'd studied so much at university. You could then be open up to other kind of opportunities, but which I think, yeah, was quite a flawed system, right? Because you're only 18 and you're like, well, what am I actually meant to do? Because that's going to then tell me what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. And it's like, well, if you compare that to today's world, it's like, it doesn't really make sense. You don't know. I know I'm kind of like a different person than when I was 18.
yeah, definitely. And I've seen and heard some things. The brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, so there's a lot of prefrontal cortex or decision making, the front part of the brain still. I think that's the last part of the last, yeah, the final piece of full brain development. So there's a lot to take in during that point in your life when you're 18 to 25. Did you notice that transitioning to university? I'd love to know how your experience was and where you studied, and what you studied.
Yeah, so I studied at a university called UTS, University of Technology Sydney. I did business and majored in accounting and finance. Um, how did I find the transition from high school to university? Because I didn't have a gap year, I went straight in. I actually didn't find it too bad. The reason and the logic behind not having the gap year, I remember a few conversations with my parents was because I was already in a cycle of study, and just to continue on with that was a bit easier. I remember, I guess one of the things that was, I was a pretty shy kid, actually, kind of growing up. So, definitely more introverted of nature. Was nervous about kind of having to meet new people when I went to university. Um, I remember that was always a bit of a challenge if I look back on things kind of now. Um, I was less sport helped with some of that because I was never like an A class athlete, but I was decent enough. So I could kind of rely on that. But I remember like in social settings and so forth, I was actually pretty yeah, an awkward kind of kid and very quiet and introverted. um, yeah, so it was kind of daunting to meet new friends. So I knew a couple of people from high school, and that kind of helped because I probably relied on them to help kind of unlock other kind of friendship groups.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where, thank you for being so vulnerable and mentioning about being a little more introverted and shy and relying on others to intro you into groups of friends. Did you notice that changing then, or you still find yourself when you were leaving university? Did you find that you were still the same, or did that change? Or
No, in terms of being introverted, I would have been pretty quiet and introverted, even even up until probably mid. The thing that made me less introverted was probably moving to the UK actually. So like we're talking like when I was like 25, 26. yeah, I was still kind of a bit shy and introverted all the way up until till then. And what was interesting now that I look back at it and kind of think about it, um, and I remember some close friends telling me because I was um, introverted. And look, I'm a bit older now. I'm losing some of my hair. I've got a few kind of grey hairs, but uh, people would judge me based on my looks, and they thought that I was a bit stuck up myself because I wouldn't talk to them or anything. They thought I had a bit of an edge or an ego, and it wasn't anything to do with that at all. I was just actually uh, kind of quiet and not that confident.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's very interesting to hear, especially from a male speaking and mentioning that they were very quiet, and maybe that sometimes the perception of that would be there's an ego. And I'd love to know, did that transition occur for you, or did that stay into your late 20s or when you left university? I'd love to know your journey from then. Or is there anything you'd like to add about how you found university? Is there anything else, or studying?
No, I actually really enjoyed the time. It was pretty free. I would always apply myself to the study. So I remember again that structured approach. So I was never one of those people that could go into an exam having just studied the night before. So for me, I needed to do all the work before, and this sounds like highly anal, but I needed to do the study um, before, or even complete the assignment a few days before, so that then I didn't need to worry about it. Um, yeah, I needed to be kind of prepared, and then I would have the kind of confidence. So similar to the way an athlete would approach their training going into some sort of major event, they need to do all the work before, and so then the outcome of the day was a bit more kind of guaranteed. I was always like that, probably yeah through uni. That allowed me to, because I was kind of prepared, then I could kind of chill out. But and then off the back of that, once the exam or assessment was completed, then I would kind of go nuts and have a few drinks and so forth. Kind of reflecting on that now was interesting because I um am not a huge kind of party nut, but I yeah did get up to some stupid things in those days, and I actually did really kind of enjoy university.
Nice one. I'd love to know then after, how did you find entering into the corporate world, the working world? And
Uh, yeah, so I started off at a like a mid-tier chartered accounting firm. I remember kind of going around for some of the big four, and they were doing big like intakes, right? I didn't try for the when I think back on it now, that you could have gone for one of the easier one. Well, it bigger intakes like audit and so forth. But I was trying to go into something a little bit kind of different, and wasn't successful in the big four ones, but it got through in a mid tier one called Crowhorth, and did a summer vacation program, which I think was like the time 6 to 8 weeks. You got paid a little bit of money, and then they did that kind of in your second last year of uni. And then if they liked you, they offered you a full time job. So yeah, the transition from uni to full time happened pretty quickly for me. Again, I didn't have any kind of gap year. I was like, oh, I'll just go with what's happening in front of me, and then ended up kind of going into full time work after that. The good thing was that I already kind of knew the team that I was going into because it was similar. That was the team that I did the summer program with. So they were kind of very nice and so forth. So, and then you had a graduate intake of like 20 other kind of people. And it was quite good, right? Because you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it's your big step into real, well, adulthood, I guess. First kind of proper job. I remember going suit shopping with mum and like, there's been some old photos around sometime, somewhere, and just looking at, like, some of the like, the suit was a bit oversized, a bit baggy. You're trying to look professional, but everyone knows that you're just like a young little kid that doesn't really kinda know too much. But yeah, back then too, they still had they had, we didn't have the iPhones, right? You still had your phone at the desk, so you had to figure out how to answer it and forward calls and so forth. And yeah, like that bit happened uh, pretty quickly for myself actually.
You mentioned when you went into the first job outside of university. How long were you at that role for? There was it was based in Sydney, and
Yeah, so well, I was in that firm for like close to 5 years. So yeah, you had to like it was very kind of structured again in terms of you come in as a grad and you go up to a I can't remember all the levels now, but um like I think it's like grad accountant, senior accountant, then you go manager, and there's probably a few more levels, and then you get up to like a partner level. But it's quite structured in terms of how you actually get to progress your year through. And the way it was kind of done, it was well, it was kind of based on like the type of work that you were completing, the amount of because it was like a professional services firm, so it's kind of the amount of billable hours that you were doing. They kind of measured on recoverability, um, and your ability to take on a kind of more work and more complex work. Um, uh, yeah, and but the thing I always knew in the back of my mind because it was and what a lot of people did in those days, they get their qualification because you've got to stay for at least 3 years or 3 years to complete your professional qualification. A lot of people will at least get that, and then they'll go and start traveling and so forth. So that was probably always the mindset. Is like, did I want to be a chartered accountant for the rest of my life, or did I want to go and experience what the world had to offer, and other types of areas within kind of finance and accounting? Yeah, that was kind of always the logic there.
was the next progression the step to move to London, or did you stay in Sydney?
Yeah. So where'd I go? I went from Crow Hallworth pretty much into uh, London. So I had some friends that they had made the move before myself. It was kind of, I guess, the pathway that a lot of Aussies would take. Right, you kind of build up your career. We'll start it kind of in Sydney, and then you'd go over and see what the rest of the world had to offer. And I remember in those days when I did it too, it can be quite lucrative because you can go over to London and you can earn contractor day rates, plus you get a pretty decent buffer on the exchange rate. So um, certainly throughout my career, the senior people that I'd been working with, that's historically kind of what they had done, and they always said it was like a really good time of their lives. And certainly, my dad being English, I had a UK passport. That it was a lot easier for me to kind of like pack up and just go to London and try something new.
Yeah, how was that experience? I know would have been met each other through training and functional fitness, but I'd love to know how was the overall time living there. And I think I saw it somewhere. I looked just double checked. I know we mentioned about the safety about growing up in London, but it said in the AA overview on Google that London has been ranked the world's best city for 11 consecutive years as of a 2026 report. praised for its unparalleled culture, prosperity, and livability, according to the Resonance Consultancy 2026 report. London leads in tourism, dining, nightlife, and global business, acting as a quote capital of capitals end quote with immense international appeal and strong post-pandemic recovery. I- Yeah, and again, I think it's the biggest, second biggest financial hub in the world. I think with Canary Wharf. So I'd love to know how was the as someone from Sydney in Australia moving over to London, how did you find it?
Yeah, so everyone thought that I was gonna come back fat. Because I thought I was gonna that everyone talked about the Heathrow injection and so forth. But the mates that knew me the most were like, no, he won't like that won't kind of happen. But yeah, I remember it being a super exciting time, like an adventure to going because you're kind of going in not really knowing what it's going to look or feel like. Obviously, people have said certain things, but you never really know until you actually get there. I really enjoyed it. It certainly opened up my perspective. Um, I kind of realized how small um, Sydney and Australia was. Yeah, I remember kind of getting, yeah, even just on the tubes and the so forth, I was like, oh, there's just so many like people here. I mean, I had been, if I kind of wind back the clock, I had been there previously on like a holiday when I finished um, my CA and so forth. So I kind of knew what it was like, but it was very different kind of going over there to actually live. And yeah, I thoroughly kind of enjoyed it. I got involved in some really cool companies. I think first company was William Grant and Sons. So they made like Hendrix gin and Grant's Scotch and so forth, and they were based out. They based out in Richmond. So I was a typical Aussie and went and lived in Clapham Junction. Um, I actually remember making I didn't want to go over there and actually live with other Australians. So I actually went over there and wanted to live with people from the UK, and I ended up living with two female housemates. And yeah, made friends with more um, what I'd say like the English folk that actually lived there because I was like, I don't want to. I'm coming all this way. I don't want to just meet other Australians. So yeah, and they were really kind of hospitable and introduced me into their friendship groups. And I think at the time too, fitness started becoming a bit more popular in the UK. And I actually went over during it was the Olympic years, so um, that was an exciting time to I guess be in the country as a newbie.
Yeah, I bet the new the stadium, the Olympic Park as well. 2012 London. Did you get tickets as well to the? Did you go see the Olympics or?
I didn't actually get to, tickets to any events, but I remember going to like Regent's Park and Hyde Park and so forth, where they had the big screens, and it was almost like a festival. Did I go? I did go to a couple of events. I think I went to a couple of soccer events, maybe athletics event. Um, but yeah, I remember definitely going to where they had the big TVs and then screens set up, which was great fun. Uh, I think the Olympics. I've always thought that they should combine the Olympics with the Paralympics because 2 weeks is never long enough. It takes second week for everyone to kind of get into it, and I've always thought they should kind of combine it and make it a month-long thing.
Yeah, yeah. I know there's the Olympics and typically a break, and the Paralympics I think are after, and yeah, it's interesting how they do it. But and then there's Brisbane 2032, I think. So I'll be back in Australia. Is that,
Yeah, that's something exciting to look forward to. So we got the Olympics in 2032. I remember the Olympics when they were in Sydney. So I was around 12 at the time. Um, and going to a few events there, and it was quite a big. quite a big buzz. It's always a good fun time to be actually in the city when the Olympics are on.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's great. I can't wait to I've never been to an Olympics. I know when Paris was on, I would have loved to I didn't get a chance to go, but yeah, that looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'll try and see if we can get up to Brisbane for the next ones.
Yeah, and I'd love to know as well, Matty, about your time in London with did you notice that were you ever and you don't have to mention if you don't want to, were you ever homesick or did you find that you were thriving being away from where you went to school and university?
Yeah, there was definitely times where I felt homesick. So I didn't believe it at the time, but there's SADs, um, where because I was coming from a country where there's lots of sunlight. I wasn't getting huge amounts of sunlight in London, so I remember calling home a few times, and my mum and my sister would be like, "Oh, is everything okay?" I would be a bit kind of uh, down. Um, and yeah, that was I guess some of that. Interesting though, in those times, I always found that I was holidaying, and I was always going to places that were warmer or had more sunshine most of the time. But I was going over there for work and travel experiences, so I was pretty active in making sure that I had lots of things kind of booked to look forward to. One thing I did find, which is interesting, and this might be my personal experience, a few mates have expressed something similar. I actually found it easier in London to connect and make friends and talk to new people because I found it was a bit like a hub. A lot of people were going there for a similar mind. They had the similar mindset. They were going there for work and also travel, and were more kind of open to meeting new types of people. Um, and then I found when I came back to Sydney, that was actually quite a bit of a culture shock and a challenge. Yes, I found London. There was always stuff going on. The nightlife was amazing, and there was always people who were up for just trying something kind of new.
Yeah, and when you came back to Sydney, that was the opposite, or is it just a bit different?
I found at the time it was hard. It was harder. Like I found it more challenging to get into different kind of social groups. I obviously had some friends that I'd made in high school and kind of work along the way, but to break into new friendship groups, I found it a little bit more challenging. Um, and I found at that time too, there, well, I guess was a bit less, from my experience, a little bit less innovation in Sydney. So London, where I was a bit more entrepreneurial, there's like more things going on. You're looking at, I was working in businesses and looking after kind of regions and areas and working with regional directors that might have come from different parts of Europe and so forth. And there was kind of more happening on the business front. And then it kind of came back to Sydney and it was a bit slower pace, and there wasn't as much stuff kind of going on because a lot of the things are controlled from either like the UK or the US. Australia is a bit more like a bit of a testing ground. So yeah, that kind of first time back, I did struggle yeah, for kind of many years to be honest. And I think it was also because I'd had this high in London where I've been working for some really cool companies, traveling, doing lots of things, and yeah, there was a bit of a lull when I came back to Sydney.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Matty. And yeah, transitioning from countries or cities or even environments is challenging. And I'd love to know, is there any things that you did during that period of time that helped you tremendously, or did you find that there was something or one thing that helped you get by and get back into a structure or routine or a friendship group or social circles?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky. So for me, fitness and health has always been quite a large part of my life. Um, I was lucky enough that a friend of mine owned a gym just around the corner from where I was kind of training. And yeah, that kind of helped me get in, keep up the training elements. I remember actually at the time I was working for someone that I we just kind of clashed. And so I was kind of like in my head going, oh, I hadn't kind of experienced this before. This was the first time in my life where I had kind of gone on with someone more senior than me. And it was quite new. And I was not feeling that great about work. And I actually, there was a period where I was not actually motivated to even train. And that had never happened to me before either. um, and I kind of didn't really, yeah, I didn't really know what to do or what to do with it. I mean, lucky I did have some kind of close friends that they had probably seen that my behavior had maybe changed a little bit. I wasn't super optimistic, um, and so forth. Obviously, my friends, sorry, my family in particular, kind of were able to support me through that kind of period, and then eventually over time, I did get back into kind of training, and it kind of like pivoted for me again. But yeah, it was quite challenging. I think if I look back on it now, I probably should have kind of sought someone with a bit of experience just to kind of maybe put things into perspective for myself and potentially why I was feeling a certain way at the time. I I I kinda didn't do that, and none of my friends were feeling that way or had been through anything. They didn't know how to kind of recommend other than just to do the best that they could, and, I probably found there was a period where I was probably also going out a bit too much, and maybe alcohol was having a bit of playing a contributing factor into how I was feeling as well.
Yeah, that's always a challenge when I suppose hindsight, you can look back now and say things you may have done different. I'd love to know, was that around COVID-19 as well? The lockdowns, was that around that time or was it
No, this would have been a few years before that. So it was just kind
before?
of when I
Yeah, yeah,
came back from, just when
yeah.
I'd come back from London. So kind of around that 16, 17 type of year time frame. Yeah, moving into to a business, and I think maybe another contributing factor was the business was going through a restructure as well. It wasn't too long into that time where uh, I either wasn't going to have a role or I was going to have to go to Singapore. And I was like, oh, I kind of just got back. I wasn't ready to move again.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where, with the restructure and it's a lot going on at once as well of as a change of environment. And did you find after that it probably went into COVID-19 and how did you find that whole experience? Was there training wise, did your health and fitness take a hit or were you able to manage that?
Yeah, so I think we'd probably talking a few years between, I guess, coming back and COVID-19. In terms of the work front, I'd worked for an early stage kind of biotech company, really interesting experience. It was an early stage kind of startup. Interesting. I worked with the CEO, and we detected a whole heap of information, and we actually only had, I think, 6 weeks to kind of 6 or 8 weeks to kind of try and pitch for investment, or we're going to have to wind down the business. So it was a pretty high stressful thing that I kind of stepped into. We actually ended up kind of shutting it down. Uh, Oddly enough, I remember that kind of day because on that day I'd shut the business down. The girl that I'd been seeing at the time ended it with me. The place I was staying at, my housemate was like, "I'm going to do a renovation. You're going to have to move out within the next kind of like week or two." So, and I only kind of mentioned that because I've had that three, those three things have been I've been hit with that on multiple kind of occasions throughout kind of my life, and they're quite difficult to deal with. One of them, let alone all three. I think what do they say? The most stressful things that you can do are trying to start a new job and moving house because it throws everything kind of out of whack. But I think I kind of went off on a slight kind of tangent on your actual pointed question, which is more kind of COVID. But what happened? It wasn't too long after that where COVID actually came into play for myself. Oh, I guess not only myself, but the rest of the world.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time, especially around people's health and well-being. And were you training in the gym, or were you allowed to go to the gym, or were you training at home? Mainly with the lockdowns, did you have somewhere you could
Yeah.
keep an
So
eye on the fitness? Or
yeah. So if we kind of go into where I was at that stage, because what had happened is I'd kind of finished up uh, where I was working. So there was another project, a government, like a $50 million government project that I got involved in and set up the whole infrastructure, and it was government funded, so it was meant to operate kind of pretty lean. And then I remember that was a kind of around the time where cloud-based technology and systems were coming into play, and I was like, "Oh, there's an opportunity here to do this fractional CFO type of work." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's a business model here." What I noticed then is Australia were late adopters. They couldn't really kind of get the concept. I think it existed more in the UK and the US, but um, there was a bit of there was actually, the reason I mentioned it is there's quite a big gap there. There was, for me, I know myself, I almost went a couple of years with not being able to kind of get a job. I was getting to final stages of interviews, but something weird would happen. Like I'd get offered the job and then they'd actually rescind the offer because they'd restructured things, or they'd choose another applicant. And this period went on for a number of years, or I was submitting applications and I was getting those auto generated responses. And that's when I kind of went in and was supplementing my income with personal training income, just to kind of get me by. And I'd try to build out this kind of fractional CFO piece. And yeah, that went on for kind of a couple of years. And actually, ironically, what happened for me is I got offered two two roles, a CFO gig for a health and or a gym chain, and then a company based in Byron, which was the flightboard role. So um, that was the ironic situation for myself, where I actually got offered something when a lot of people, the opposite thing was happening. And I wanted the gym chain one, but they kept on opening and shutting the gym. So I ended up moving up to Byron. which a lot of people were trying to move up for at that time. And that was an interesting opportunity in itself because I'd never, up until that point, I'd already only worked in larger cities. So Byron, yeah, very different type of vibe, going and living up there, a little bit more kind of hippie, a lot more nature, a lot more snakes. But yeah, exciting kind of opportunity to, I guess, get out of kind of Sydney at that point in time and move up and try something new.
Yeah, another new environment. How did you find the change? Was it similar feelings to London, or was it a bit different?
It was. I remember being super exciting at the time because everyone was like, "Oh, how'd you get that gig?" And everyone, like at that point in terms of what was going on, everyone was, a lot of people were trying to move there. But yeah, again, very different because here's me kind of more city based, been working in some larger kind of companies, being used to kind of working pretty quickly and diligently, and more. I guess I kind of seeing what works at the bigger end of town, and I went into a business that was growing pretty quickly, and you had different capabilities, founder led, very innovative kind of product. But you then also had people that had moved to Byron just to chill out, and didn't necessarily didn't necessarily want to kind of move a million miles an hour, and their backgrounds weren't necessarily corporate backgrounds themselves, and uh, less people in Byron too. Kind of people know each other, I guess, from yourself being in Ireland, you probably get that a little bit more. But like for me, it was kind of new. So yeah, again, like a bit of a challenge to try and find the right social networks as well, because there's less people um to choose from.
Yeah, wow. And how long were you in Byron for? In total, was it?
Yeah, it was close. It was a bit over kind of 3 years. Um Yeah, like it does the kind of, I guess, the lifestyle is suited because what was it, insane is it had a high growth kind of business. So that was a real learning curve for myself, because Flightboard was international, super complex business, a lot of moving parts to it. Uh, but I'd say like the first time into like a CFO kind of role. When I started, I think business had maybe 20 employees, maybe 25. And then that headcount tripled over the space of 3 years. Yeah, lots of different challenges to solve, and unpack. Remember coming in, and the first thing I did was basically just start kind of documenting what was working and what wasn't, because that was one of the first things that I noticed. You had different capabilities. Whilst it was kind of founder led, the founder had a lot of kind of product knowledge, and there was some kind of gaps missing within the organizational structure and kind of people management side of things, and also the systems to be able to kind of scale and grow. And so that was part of building out that 90 day roadmap, meeting with the different people within the organization, to figure out where they come from, what their backgrounds were, um, what was working and what wasn't working. And then we kind of started to build that all together. And I think, Ryan, we've talked about this before. There's books like Traction, which talk about kind of building rocks and so forth. And that formed a real key part of me, and to kind of build and unite it. a team to develop the next kind of stage of growth for the business. But it was also a good opportunity on the personal front because I did some different things up there that I hadn't tried. Like I remember playing water polo, and that's by all means the hardest sport in the world to try and play. That's very difficult.
Yeah, water polo is one of those things that I never tried my hand at, but it's yeah, you need to be. I feel like you need to be tall and big and a lot of strength in the water.
Yeah, it's super hard, right? Because it's not like doing something like CrossFit or um, basketball or something like that, where you can still be on your feet. Like you have to go swim, get to the ball, and then someone might dunk you underwater, or you still got to tread water. It's actually really, it's actually really hard. But yeah, I think probably just outside of the business front, I probably got into some more kind of spiritual sides of things up in Byron, started looking at life a little bit differently. I kind of believe that the universe will throw certain challenges at your way, and it's you'll keep getting that same kind of challenge um, in life until you figure out how to overcome it. um, and that was something where, yeah, I think being up in Byron, I kind of started looking at life a little bit differently. There's kind of some different types of people up there who are a little bit more, I guess, eccentric and open minded, and being able to kind of think around and that was kind of a key takeout as well.
Yeah, wow, that's I love that when you mentioned that the universe will throw you s- certain certain situations or curveballs and figure out a way of getting around it. And I think this brings us to where we met in, or there's maybe a space in between, but in Sydney and Bondi there, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah, well, I guess it kind of it's a good segue into that. Obviously, I came back down to Sydney and have been kind of doing my own thing for the last 3 years, and then yeah, like I think did I put a post up? Is that what? And then you commented. Is that how it worked? I think.
yeah, maybe. I know we knew each other from London, and then I think I reached out and we went for a swim. It was 7 a.m. and that's 8 a.m., 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. Went for
Yeah.
it was meant to be boy and back, but I think I just sent you a DM on Instagram, and then we got into the water, and then we went for a coffee after
Uh
in Pocket Bondi.
yeah, and
One of
we got confused over you said swim, and so I was ready to do like a couple of Ks of swimming, and then I found out that you meant dip,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is
I think
literally.
well, I'm still getting used to. Yeah, I need to be more precise with my language. You mentioned swim and dip, and yeah, I think next time I'll go out a little bit further. But yeah, getting used to the Australian water and the water here in Sydney, and
Yeah, so I thought you meant kind of swim, but yeah, like for me, it just kind of happened. Obviously, I remember we met in London, and you were coaching at the time, and I thought, oh yeah, like he's reached out, we'll kind of catch up and just see kind of what he's up to, and then yeah, you kind of mentioned what you were looking to do, and then how you've come up here, and obviously we connected quite well in terms of the conversations and so forth, and yeah, then you just randomly offered offered a job.
yeah, yeah. I think we were suited. A lot of trust there built up, and then uh, working on this company and business and for the last or project and building for the last 4 months, it made kind of sense. I was looking for a CTO, but then I was looking for COO and CTO, and I thought you were just a perfect match based on your CFO experience and all the years in London that trust built up. And how we every time we've met each other, I think we've got on so well, and yeah, the fact that you were able to go a lot further than me swimming wise was, yeah, just able to get, yeah, it's just it complementary skills and strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, I think it's a great partnership, and we both joined Fishburners, which is Australia's #1 startup community, and yeah, chatting to trying to raise money soon, pre-seed, and we're trying to raise money and a bit of revenue, and yeah, get something in the market. But yeah, taking time. We were talking about, I don't know if we'll mention this. We've been talking, well, I've been mentioning quite a bit, the tortoise and the hare scenario, and the concept of delayed gratification, been using quite a bit with the marshmallow test. For those of you who are maybe unaware out there about the delayed gratification is, for example, I think there was a study done by Stanford, and they had kids in a room and they put a marshmallow in front of them, and then they left, and then some kids ate the marshmallow and some didn't. And I think the ones that didn't had better outcomes in life and health outcomes. Delayed gratification. Yeah, the Stanford marshmallow experiment and the power of delayed gratification. 40 years of Stanford research, and then it's behavioral psychology by James Clear has an article on it, and talked about the ability for delayed gratification, uh, and just like training our muscles and in the gym in the same way. I think, yeah, I think there's better outcomes, and I'd have to double check. But if you're out there listening, I'm sure you can double check. I may add a child's measure about a delay offering them a choice to eat. I'll maybe add it in after or in the description. And also the ability of the tortoise and the hare, I find with startups and businesses, a lot of them are like the hare. They get off, they start, they get out of the blocks pretty early, and they get the office and they start hiring and they start building a product, and they probably burn through money. And I think I like the analogy of the tortoise, the slow and steady wins the race. And I think that's how we're going at the moment. The consistency, the approach of just showing up week by week and day to day and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why we connected so much, Ryan. And I think we had similar outlooks. I know that certainly from my perspective, I've always been conscious of, because I've had to sit in the CFO seat, like cash, particularly when you're looking at high growth businesses and so forth. And Flyboard itself was a very capital intensive business. Um, yeah, we had to really kind of make sure that we managed cash well. I I guess if I look at the last period in which I've been, I guess, a single operator and had to unwind businesses where they haven't had a good lens on, well, financial information and financial acumen have kind of been some key critical areas, and they've come into headwinds, and it's very difficult to unwind. And I think that's where we're kind of looking in terms of this space to kind of create some kind of products to help at an individual and also a business level, so they don't get into that state, because the turnarounds are hard, and yeah, you want to be able to kind of avoid them as much as possible, and be able to kind of get a lens on potentially what might happen in the future, as opposed to having to go this reactive approach, which becomes a lot more high pressure. Know that myself in those experiences where I've had to take on, I guess, the stress from the owner, but also looking at it and go, well, yeah, you have a responsibility to look after the employees that you're um, employing, because they have lives and livelihoods and families and so forth that they're looking after. So you have to make sure that you're considerate in what you're looking to do. Then you're creating a financially viable uh, business. Yeah, I think that was kind of one of the when we were talking, that was one of the key outtakes that I got.
Definitely, definitely, and that trust factor I felt was there. And by the way, at the moment we're looking for someone technical founding side of the team. So if you know a CTO out there, or if anyone's interested in having a conversation, feel free to reach out to myself or Matty on LinkedIn. I don't know if our emails may find them online. And yeah, before I just go, I think that delayed gratification, just I didn't do it justice. Real quickly, when people talk about quote outcomes in life, end quote, from the Stanford University Marshmallow Research by Walter Mischel, they're really talking about patterns, not guarantees. What early studies suggested kids who were better at delayed gratification tended, on average, to have better academic performance, higher test scores, more persistent in school, stronger self-control, less impulsive behavior, better emotional coping, handling stress and frustration more effectively, healthier habits, lower rates of risky behavior later on. And then what newer research classified, those outcomes are partly explained by background factors, family stability, socioeconomic status, but the effect of, quote, pure willpower, end quote, is real but smaller than originally claimed. Environment plus skills matter just as much as personality. A more accurate takeaway: delayed gratification is linked to better life outcomes because it reflects a mix of ability to plan ahead, skill in managing impulses, experience living in a predictable, trustworthy environment. In plain terms, people who can pause, think long term, and regulate themselves tend to do better, but it's not destiny. It's not just about being, quote, strong, end quote. So, yeah, just super interesting. Just things we're talking about at the moment. Just thought I'd mention, clarify the point. And you can also find us in Fish Burners if you're involved in that organization in Tech Central, 477 Pitt Street. And Matty, I'd love to know, is there anything we're missing, or if there's one big takeaway you'd like to maybe listeners out there, or
No, I think just yeah, look, we're thinking pretty big in terms of what we're looking to build. So uh, up for taking kind of ambitious people. I know that we both have international experience and have worked with some pretty cool companies. I know myself, I like people that are kind of open minded, have plenty of energy. So yeah, more than welcome to. Um, if that's kind of appealing to anyone, come and have a chat. Won't take you for a 2K swim. Don't worry about that. Just come and say hello and have a chat to us, and yeah, we see where we can go with this. I know, Ryan, I think we're both have sensed like this AI opportunity and kind of what's happening there, and people are going to kind of be forced into two ways. You're going to have to kind of go with it, or it gets kind of left, or you'll get left behind. And I think, yeah, we're definitely looking to adopt and kind of and progress with that, and take that as far as we can.
definitely. And for those of you who are wondering, from if you want more information, the company's on LinkedIn, the business, it's Fluxium, Fluxium, and you can find it online, fluxium.ai. The tagline at the moment is powering the next generation of finance. Really interested in the fintech space, but open to pivot if there's any. We bring on the CTO. If there's anyone else in the co-founding team that gets involved that sees a different opportunity. But yeah, I thought I'd just mention it. Yeah, I think that's it. Matty, I'd love to know, just on a personal note, before we sign off, is there one piece of advice you'd go back and give to your younger self, if anyone's listening out there that may be on a similar journey as to you, and maybe they're teens, or they're growing up, or their teens, or or their 20s or 30s? Is there any words of wisdom?
Oh yeah, geez, that's a deep question. Definitely something that I've experienced because I've gone through multiple times where been hit with multiple kind of headwinds, and kind of received quite a few kind of knockbacks. My biggest piece of advice would be, yeah, if you're trying to push too hard and the energy is not being received, then start looking elsewhere where that energy can be received. And that's being around kind of the right people that are open minded, that are kind of fostering your thoughts. I know historically that I might have spent probably too long trying to push something that was never going to work. Um, and yeah, so that would kind of be one of my outlooks of if if you're constantly coming up a barrier and you can't push through it, maybe just kind of look around the corner and kind of go to where that energy's taking, and you'll probably find that it might be a bit easier.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I definitely love that. It's yeah, the fact you mentioned it could be even easier. Your energy is drained going down one path, maybe a route you get stuck, and maybe look around the corner, or yeah, it could be there's a tangent in Trinity Business School that they're saying is to think around corners, and you mentioned it could be even easier than previous. It could, yeah, more energy, and it could be easier than the other way. So
Yeah. It sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes it is. And I noticed that I've, particularly as I've kind of come out as an outsider on certain, into certain kind of businesses and just been seeing what's going on, I'm like, "Oh, well, that doesn't make any sense that you're trying to do it that way. We could do it, this way." And that might be like a new process, a new system, a new kind of, tool, but quite often, if you're in the weeds, you may not think of it like that. And I think just probably stemming on for that would be that if you're trying to, if people can't understand you, and they're not willing to listen, then maybe they're not the right people. And I don't think that's something that we're not looking to create at all, right? I think we're very much open to where people are coming from, to hear their thoughts, because it can link to other thinking, right? It might be like, well, we may not go that way for this reason, but yeah, it might allow us to kind of go in a slightly kind of different, direction, and that can kind of come from all levels.
definitely, definitely, that resonates a lot, and I think that's a perfect point to leave the audience with. And Matty, if anyone's interested in reaching out to you to learn more about yourself or Fluxium, would they go to LinkedIn, or where's the best place to find you with it?
Yeah, I think best place to find me would be to LinkedIn. Probably ping me the message there. We've got the landing page up, right, for Fluxium, so we'll be constantly kind of monitoring that as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and yeah, excited to go on this journey together. And yeah, it's just been so far. It's been, you mentioned what if this? I think it feels easy, which is great. I think things aren't meant to always be a struggle and hard in life. And as your point, I don't want to make it about myself. That was, yeah, yeah. I think, yeah,
That's
I,
all right.
things are going well. So we'll just keep it going. And yeah, thanks again for coming on the show, Matty, and hope you have a great rest of your day. And it's going to be a pleasure working together. And
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
thanks, Matty. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.